Okay, folks, well, thank you very much. Danielle, when you're all set,
I'm good to go.
you're good to go, okay. Very good. Good evening and welcome to the January 14th, 2020 Red Hook Town Board meeting. Would you be kind enough to join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and Danielle, for the folks at home, we have tonight's agenda. There are going to be a couple of changes. We're going to jump around a bit on the order of the agenda. We're going to tackle, after a public comment period, number 6, the 284 agreement, and number 3, discussion on healthcare plans first, and then tackle some of those other things. The reorg is a rather lengthy process that we'll begin tonight and see how far we can get. And then at the end of the meeting, we have an attorney-client session that we need to go into. So have you got the agenda for them? Okay, very good. Thanks very much. So, first of all, we want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. This is our first town board meeting in 2020, and we are pleased to welcome 2 town board members, new town board members, Jacob Testa over here, and William Hamill over on my left, your right. And as we begin every first meeting of the month, we do that with the supervisor's report. That's a report of some of the basics associated with the financial condition of the town. And let's see if technology will cooperate here, looks like, eventually. It's loading rather slowly, however. There we go. We get there. Okay, this is for the period ending December 31st, 2019. And we started the month with an opening balance of $7,105,038.46. We had receipts net of transfers of $272,757, disbursements of $767,102. So we end with a balance of $6,610,693. Included in your packet are budget adjustments that have been prepared by our bookkeeper, Ann Conway, and the monthly variance report. These are drafts. We should tell you there will still be some straggler bills coming in for 2019, and so these will be updated in future meetings to reflect 2019 expenses that come in after the start of the year. Done is gone through all the budget lines and made adjustments as we begin the closeout process for 2019. You can see the increased revenues and appropriations by line. It looks like we are doing quite well, although we don't, again, as I said earlier, have every expense in for 2019 yet. It looks like we'll have favorable results as compared to budget. Okay, if there are no questions about the report, I would entertain a motion to approve the supervisor's report and the budget adjustment.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. We also have a town clerk's report. Sue?
Town Clerk Monthly Report for December 2019.
Total local shares to the town for town revenue, $1,620.58. Amount remitted to New York State Ag and Markets for their spay and neuter program, $41. Amount remitted to New York Department of Health for marriage licenses, $22.50. Amount remitted to New York State Department of Racing and Wagering, $15. And amount remitted to New York State Environmental Conservation, $14.17, for a total state and local revenue of $1,713.25. This is pursuant to Section 27, Sub 1 of the town law. I also have some abstracts here. This one is from September, and this is for vouchers 25400 through 25510. And the total abstract was $178,340.52. And I certify that the vouchers were processed in the month of September and are an accurate reporting of what was approved for payment by the town board. The next one is October 2019, vouchers 25511 through 25635 for a total abstract of $245,798.43. And I certify that those vouchers were processed in October 2019, and they were the abstracts that were approved for payment by the town board. Next month is November 2019, voucher number 25635 through 25713. Total abstract $478,509.51. And these are the vouchers for November 2019 approved for payment by the town board. Last one is December 2019, vouchers 25714 through 25841. Total abstract $774,751.42. And this is an accounting for December 2019 for vouchers approved for payment by the town board. I just have a couple of quick little announcements. I have presented to the town board tonight the financial report for 2019 and for the town clerk and also for the tax receiver. Tax bills are going to be mailed out either this Thursday or Friday. If you are not supposed to receive it and your bank is, send it right along to your bank. There's generally a bank code on. If you don't receive a bill, everybody's supposed to get one, so please call me and I can get you a copy of a bill. Also, recycle stickers, the new ones for this year are on sale. You can buy them at the town hall, at the recycle center, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, or we can do it by mail. Just enclose a self-addressed stamped envelope to me. And one permit is $15 and two per household is $18. And just a reminder also, because unfortunately, sometimes dogs get licensed when they get caught running loose, but all dogs need to be licensed in New York State. And it's really something the town of Red Hook is going to start working on. So it might be a good idea if you just come forward and license your dog if you have a dog. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you very much. So, is there a motion to accept the clerk's report?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. I don't have any other additional announcements other than the ones that Sue had. Does anyone else? Okay. At this time, we'd like to take any public comments. If you would like to share with us your friend. If you could just tell us your name. You don't even have to tell us where you live.
Brett Brandis, and live in College Park here in Red Hook. Thank you for listening to us today. It's important to talk about these things in public and have them on the record. Back in November, almost 2 months to the day, we had a shooting incident in our neighborhood. Kind of opened our eyes to what's going on in our neighborhood, and it was a little bit of a shock. So we actually decided to create a neighborhood watch in our community, which is now registered in New York. And we had our first meeting on December 17th, in which we spent some time discussing the incident itself, talking to the police that responded and the Sergeant Aldergreen. He was at the meeting. We discussed with the residents and him about the incident and how we can help keep our community safe, including, personal security in our homes, in our cars, that sort of thing. How to report suspicious activity promptly, and basically the consensus was the need to feel safe again in our little community. It's a quiet little spot. Linden Acres, Red Oak Estates, very similar. It was quite a shock to hear that what was going on in our little neighborhood. There's a couple houses in our community that are being used for purposes we don't believe they should be used for. Squatters, drugs, that sort of thing. Even some whispers of some human trafficking, which is scary to think about. So we've got some signs we're going to be putting up in our neighborhood for the Neighborhood Watch. It's a little deterrent. It's not much, but it's something. We are determined to take our streets back. You've heard that term before, and we're going to do that. We're going to keep an eye on things. We're going to report suspicious activity, and we are going to be diligent about that. Including in that security aspect, we're looking for more lighting in the neighborhood. There are some street lights that have been out for years. We spoke to Central Hudson. They're going to help us with that a little bit. We're going to go through you if we can to help us facilitate those needs. There are some stretches of streets that have no lights on them at all. They're very dark at night. I welcome you to drive through. Even now, it's pretty dark back there. We asked for more patrols in our neighborhood. We know there are budgetary problems with that, but police presence is a big thing that we'd like to see more of. Speed limits that we know are being addressed recently. We've heard that they're being increased, which is a sad thing to hear, especially for a little community like that, if it's going to be 30 in the village, we have 35 posted in our neighborhood. It doesn't make much sense to hear that sort of thing. So I'm not sure if that's true or not, but we're hoping that that can be discussed a little more, prudently before those signs are put up. My point is, if we have a neighborhood that we want to keep safe, and we want to do that by posting signs, keeping diligent things, keeping eyes on our neighborhoods. We talked to the sergeant about when we're actually away from home, talking to our neighbors about keeping an eye on our properties for us. Things like that we take for granted in a little community like ours. So I just want to put on record that we're doing those things, and we hope you guys will help us facilitate the lighting, the signage, patrols. Anything that can help would be appreciated.
Great.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to make some public comments? Okay, so I'll just very quickly say thank you for coming, and thank you for staying in communication with us and expressing to us the specific concerns you have. And I think we've started to address our various departments, some of those things that you mentioned tonight, and hopefully you've been seeing more of a police presence. It's a very frightening thing that your neighborhood went through. I recognize that the individual was not from the area, but it doesn't matter. These incidents happen oftentimes when somebody is, visiting some other part of the state, not their hometown. So really very concerned about it. We want you to feel safe in your homes. We're doing everything we can from a code enforcement perspective, from a policing. There are processes that we have to follow for all of these things, including lighting, even that, because it's part of the lighting district, and so there's a procedure for getting additional lights, but we've already started that process to take a look at that. And so we'd like to have some discussion once we get done with taking a look at what we have mapped out existing there, and talk to you all. Maybe we should have a neighborhood meeting coming up sometime soon, and maybe we can cover a few of these topics together.
That'd be great.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
I could just really quickly address the speed limit,
Speed
just so
limit,
that
would
people
you?
understand what the issue is.
Yeah.
So in 1974, they created this 30-mile-an-hour speed limit in all of the areas, Forest Park, College Park, and Willow. But unfortunately, in 1990, they created a townwide speed limit at 35 for most of the roads in the town. And so that was not excluded. So that means by regulation, and the state sets these, we don't. We can ask them to change it, but they may or may not change it when we ask them to. And so in 1990, the speed limit was changed to 35. It's been 35 ever since then, but it wasn't posted that way. because I think nobody ever took the signs down. And so over time, they've been trying to update all the signs in the town because they have to update signs to be in compliance with new regulations. So they just got to those signs, so they were updating the signs to be correct. So they are 35. The town, and I'm trying to remember what year, we've requested a couple of times over the last 10 years.
Throughout the years, we make requests of
Right, to
DOT.
reduce the limits in those residential districts, because it doesn't make sense, you know, to have them be the same as they are on maybe a more busily traveled street. And so I think that historically, the town board's agreed with you and has made requests to DOT to lower those speed limits, but so far we haven't been successful. It doesn't mean they can't ask again, but it means that that's the process. They have to ask the DOT for approval to change limits.
What
Yeah.
about,
Okay.
what about safety concerns about the speed on certain turns? I mean, there are turns in our neighborhood that are not, this is unsafe to take that kind of speed.
Oh, no stop.
And no stop signs, straight away. There's curves in there that are almost 90 degrees that you can't take at 35 miles an
So
hour.
Right.
when we make our recommendation, and we can take that up in the near future, it gets passed on to the county, and they oftentimes concur with our recommendation to lower speed limits. It then gets forwarded to the entity that has the authority to approve those changes, and that's DOT. We've had some success, and then we've had some glaring failures on their part to see, obvious situations in front of Mill Road, for example. We asked for Mill Road to be, Rockefeller to be lowered from 45 miles per hour. We noted that it was not only a location of a elementary school, but of a nursery school, and also agricultural operations on both sides of the road. They turned down our request. Forest Park is another good example. Similar type of streets where you have very small, in many cases, stubby streets, and you have a couple of longer ones where it's even difficult to get up more than 40 or 45, but no car should be going 40 or 45 in a forest park. And they've rejected those recommendations as well. So we're very frustrated because it's a home rule state, unless of course you want to lower the speed limits within your community, even on your own town roads. They went so far as last year to require municipalities to pay for the engineering expense to do a study that would then back up the rationale for making, the speed limits different. They've since reversed that because it was such a bad decision. But we'll continue to work on these for all of the residential neighborhoods. Frankly, they should have very low speed limits. They're chock full of children and folks who live in sort of tight settings where there are lots of driveways and people pulling out and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, we'll take that up. And I think one thing that Chris did not mention is because the speed limit is not posted correctly, we actually can't enforce any speed limit. So somebody could be going 60 miles an hour, but because it's posted incorrectly, improperly, we can't ticket them for that. So that's why they're all being updated to be the speed limit that was adopted actually 20 some odd years ago for those particular roads. Sorry, I know that's not the answer you wanted to hear, but we'll take up the discussion of putting in a request to lower speed limits on the roads.
Can we also request on our own?
Well, yes,
Contact.
I'm assuming this is a request, but we'll take a look at all the roads there and see if we can get some recommendations. We'll talk to our highway superintendent as well, our engineers, and maybe they'll have some recommendations about which roads we should consider putting in a speed limit reduction request.
Okay,
Okay?
appreciate that.
Okay. Very good. Any other public comments before we jump in? Okay. Thank you very much. All right, so as promised, first meeting of the month, we're going to jump around a little bit, if that's okay. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Good luck at college.
Thank you.
Item number 6 is the 284 agreement. Each year, the board approves requests made by our highway superintendent based upon her recommendations of which roads are next in line, if you will, for improvements. This agreement calls for improvements made to Knox, Alder, and Aspinwall, commencing at Linden and ending at Kelly, a distance of approximately 1.4 miles. And that's for an asphalt overlay, 22 feet wide. Also, Pitcher Lane, leading to Linden Avenue, a distance of 1.6 miles, and that's a chip seal that's being placed on the road to extend the life of the road. Is that correct, Teresa?
Yes.
Okay, and then also Kelly Road, Whalesback, and leading to Linden Avenue, 1.85 miles, also a chip seal process. And that's in addition to $50,000 towards general repairs. And so we are looking at $244,000 in improvements and $50,000 in repairs. And does anyone have any questions? It's pretty straightforward to me, falls within the budget line. If not, I would entertain a motion that we approve this 284 agreement. Is there a second?
Second.
This is a resolution number 1 of 2020 to approve highway expenditures. We have a first from myself, a second by Bill O'Neill. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. We have 2 originals that will need signatures from folks. So I'm going to pass those down to you if I could. The next item, jumping around again, I apologize, going to item number 3, that's the discussion of the healthcare plans. Our healthcare broker has provided us now for some time, and we've had for some time, the various plans. What we have in front of us tonight is just to decide if we are sticking with our existing MVP health plan, or if we are going to switch over to a different one. We've got some input from our healthcare broker as well. I don't know if you have any questions. I'm going to make a recommendation that since we have a couple of new board members, and we do need to make a decision right now that we might consider taking, a more in-depth look later on in the springtime or summertime, perhaps springtime. But for now, stick with the plan. It seems to be the one that our broker likes the best as far as the coverage for our employees. And depending upon the utilization, it should fall within our budget line. We've made some changes in staffing in the different funds.
So it's the MVP Silver 8 plan, right?
It's the Silver 8, exactly. I noticed, though, that the co-pays and deductibles, I'm sure you did as well, have gone up, the potential on that, instead of individuals of $3,700 and family of $7,400. It's now $3,900 and $7,800. And the premium is up 6% and change on top of that.
This is number 6, I guess. Let's see if this is the number 6. He jumped.
Number 3, I'm sorry, I'm on item number 3, Jacob.
No, I was just trying to figure out where we were. I was flipping through.
Oh, healthcare, you know, okay.
On the
so look
packet?
for, the tab.
You wanna,
Yeah, I don't have anything in 3.
Oh, there's nothing in three?
Yeah.
you know, it's an HRA deductible, so
That's
I
what
want
I
to
thought.
clarify that that's not like out-of-pocket
Right, that's the,
deductible before insurance kicks in.
right.
So
So
as I
the-
find mine, I'll look through 3 and 4 and 5. if they-
it's in 3, Jacob. We're on
I didn't have
item
anything in 3.
Yeah,
Really?
Oh, really?
Okay.
All right.
that's it there.
That was it.
Yeah, you got it. You got your hands on it. There you go. So that's the packet that you had sent to you digitally. The plan is the next page, the various plans. Christine asked me to clarify, perhaps with the 2 new town board members, that the figures I quoted were the HRA amounts. That is the amounts for the propane deductible that the town covers for the employees, the maximum amounts under the plan. Okay. So are we good to stick with this for this year, and then we'll take a look at some other options, maybe when we have more time? And we'll do reading credits to Stephen. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we continue with the MVP Silver 8 plan, and the policies that we have in place for 2020. Is there a second for that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. All right, moving right along. Why don't we tackle,
Do water rates?
let's do water rates. So you have correspondence from the Water Board Chairman, Hank Harris. As he set out a couple of years ago, he wanted to slowly and incrementally raise the water rate within our water districts to be adequately funded for when we need to make major improvements. As you know, in many communities, municipalities, whenever they have a large infrastructure project, they often have to go out to bond for large amounts, and the users in those districts have sort of dramatic one-time increases. Not always the case, but often is the case. And so Hank and the Water Board, what they would like to do is make sure they are well-funded and accruing a little bit each year towards future infrastructure improvements. The system in the districts, now approaching 50 years plus. Some of the lines, we've had some studies on the water tanks, we've gotten those estimates. So we would like to get some input from the public as required, under the law as well. Anytime you propose changes to the water rate, and he is proposing an increase of 5% for the year. That would still make the water district very competitive as compared to other water districts in the region. I think he'll probably bring us some comparisons, as he often does, to the public hearing. He'll be with us. I'd like to propose that we set the public hearing for the first meeting in February.
And Hank will be there for that?
And Hank will be here. So that's February 11th, 2020. And shall we say 7:35?
Mhm.
This would now be resolution number
2.
2020. Whereas the Red Hook Water Board has recommended modification of the water rates and charges to increase the minimum rate from $42.74 to $44.88 for up to 9,000 gallons. This is a quarterly rate that I'm quoting. And from $5.20 to $5.46 per 1,000 gallons over 9,000. as further set forth in the attached schedule. And the schedule includes some other fees, installation fees for new hookups and service restoration fees and so on and so forth. So Tuesday, February 11th, 7:35, Town Hall, and I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, any further discussion? If not, folks in the Water District, we'll see you then.
Well, we're gonna vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right.
Is he a letter 2020?
So let's get
2019.
Sorry.
Probably because my date is
Okay.
so new, still.
We'll adjust. Okay. The Association of Towns, and for the folks at home, they should know that there's an organization called the Association of Towns who works to collaborate all of the local municipalities, who work together and they lobby on our behalf. They propose resolutions to Albany to try and assist us in local government, perform services better for you. And each year they have what's called a legislative program. It's really asks of the legislature. And they have this year 10 resolutions that they're asking each municipality to consider and support. And I'll give you just a quick rendition. Resolution number 1 is to preserve and support home rule, and it talks about how the AOT is calling upon the governor and legislature to preserve and strengthen our home rule. We talked about that earlier, about how it's a home rule state, but if we want to determine the speed limits on our own roads, actually, we don't have the authority to do that. And so that would be a good example of asking for additional home rule authority. And so is there any questions about resolution number 1? I'm assuming that's something you would want to support. Resolution number 2 is additional funding, and oftentimes these resolutions relate to areas of local government where we feel we need more funding in order to accomplish either the objectives or mandates that are being placed upon us here. Resolution number 2 is to support and fund local roads, bridges, and highway operations, and it talks about increasing the various pools of money that come down from Albany, and talking about how that has not increased significantly over time, and a capital program planned by the state. That is more money. It talks about support for local low volume and minimum maintenance roads, and other specifics. Okay, any questions about that? Resolution number 3 is supporting town services and operations by increasing state aid, authorizing new local revenue sources, and evaluating mandates. And this is sort of a catch-all resolution, talking about how back last year AIM was proposed to be eliminated, then it was reinstated, but it was reinstated coming from county sales tax for 90% of the towns in 2019. And so this resolution seeks to increase those pots as well, and some background associated with that. Resolution number 4 is something that I think we need to start working on here in the town of Red Hook, because we have a rather unreliable cellular and broadband service here in our community. And some of us have been involved for a little while now in looking into municipal broadband for the last couple of years, and I think that's something we really ought to explore. If you live out in the hinterlands, as I do, you feel like you've won the lottery sometimes when you have internet. So resolution number 4 cameras to support the expansion of cellular and broadband service while preserving local authority. It talks about 5G. Everybody know 5G is coming. We just want to have some influence over where it's located and ensure that we get some revenue associated with that commercial activity as well. Resolution number 5, amend and fund criminal justice reform. So there's a hot topic for you. The state budget enacted in 2019 included substantial criminal justice reforms, such as eliminating monetary payoff for a significant number of criminal charges. Perhaps too many of those situations, and requiring prosecutors and police to turn over relevant evidence within 15 days of arraignment. And I think that this resolution deals with the administrative burdens associated with that, and that local municipalities, whether it's policing or courts, find themselves needing to put in more hours associated with these reforms, and not necessarily even talking about the wisdom of those reforms. And so that's what resolution number 5 is. Any questions about that? Resolution number 6 then is to share potential cannabis revenue and support local options. So this is twofold. This resolution says if you, New York, are going to legalize recreational marijuana, that the local municipalities should participate in any tax revenue that's associated with that. It also, going back to home rule, talks about whether or not local municipalities can have the decision-making on whether or not we want to have located in our communities cultivators, processors, distributors, dispensaries, and any other cannabis-associated facilities to operate. So that's the gist of resolution number 6. Resolution number 7 looks like a resolution that appears quite often from time to time for obvious reasons. It's regarding comprehensive real property tax reform. And it talks about the economic climates where you see certain costs escalating. We talked about healthcare with annual costs, increases in premiums of 21%, 15, 15.9, and better than 6 and change. And yet on this other hand, you see tax cap of 2%. And it talks about alternative methods for dealing with things like real property tax exemption, not-for-profits, and a more comprehensive formula to deal with the inequities that it feels are punishing towns. All right. Any questions about that? Resolution number 8, support optional town-initiated justice court restructuring. As you may know, we are about to embark on a shared service analysis for facilities, the village and town court, whether or not they can be co-located in one place, and we could share staffing and provide a better service perhaps. And so we're already taking up that effort. This resolution talks about how we should keep court consolidation and restructuring at the local option, and it should be a locally initiated program. Resolution number 9 deals with supporting municipal recycling programs. As many of you who are involved in the economics know that there was a change a couple of years ago with China no longer buying a lot of our recycles. It has changed sort of the economics of recycling in our communities, and we are, as a municipality, paying a lot more to have our recycles taken from our transfer facility. And so this resolution asks for, as many of them do, some financial support so that we can continue to offer those services, those very important environmental services for our residents. Resolution number 10 actually does deal with supporting ways to reduce municipal health benefit costs, and it talks about the disadvantaged nature of small government and how, because we don't have the critical mass and we're not able to join county self-insured health plans, that we're not perhaps getting the best pricing either. And so it asks the state to facilitate the ability to join together, as we do with many other things like our commercial and other liability insurances with Reimer, and our workman's comp insurance we do with Comp Alliance, to do that with healthcare as well. So those are the 10 resolutions. I'm sorry if I was so long-winded about them, but for the folks at home to understand that this is what this organization is looking for our support for and trying to work towards. So are there any questions about those resolutions? Are there any that you would not like to support or you would like to suggest modifications to before we go ahead and entertain the motion? All right.
I'm not a huge fan of number 5.
Okay.
I guess I don't know how much of a burden this actually poses on our community. I know this is for towns across the state, but it just doesn't strike me as something that is necessary. I think that particularly the discovery aspect of it, I don't see the need to reduce that. I think that 2 weeks is a fair amount of time to disclose evidence of something that you're being accused of. In terms of the additional funding for the administrative hearing, I'm fine with that, but I think that discovery is one thing. And I don't personally see the need to expand the sorts of crimes that courts can impose bail for, but that's up for discussion, I guess. I know that it's that there are other elected officials for our jurisdiction that have strong stances on this as well.
So
But
did you want more days for discovery or less?
I think that keeping it at 15 days seems fine. I
Oh, fine.
don't see the need to expand.
Whereas this resolution looks
It's
to
trying to
extend it.
extend it, yes.
Understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're okay with 15 days and you're okay with additional funding. You're just not sure yet. And I guess it's a fair comment. I mean, it's only been a couple weeks since the law has been in place. I know folks feel very strongly about some incidents that have taken place, but to the administrative burden yet, we really haven't had enough time to assess that. But I will say that the Sergeant Hildebrand and the police have already approached me and are concerned about additional, and the court as well perhaps, about additional administrative burdens that may be placed upon them. But to your point, it's quite early to assess that, yeah. Okay. So would you,
So do you need a resolution from us to endorse them, or what would you?
yeah, I'm just wondering, is there anything we want to say about number 5 before we have a motion to support these resolutions? Any others on that?
Fine.
You're fine with that? Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve and support the resolutions by the Association of Towns at their annual conference coming up in February. Is there a second?
Second.
No?
Give it to Bill.
Give it to Bill. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Okay.
I think we're gonna need to say which bill when we do
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Mr.
I
Hamel,
wrote it down.
we've changed the village. Second by Hamel.
Hey, now we have 2 Christines and 2 Bills.
Yes.
Wow.
You notice all our folders are last names now, to avoid confusion. Okay, so let's tackle some reorganization, shall we? We have,
Bid Boston Advantage?
no.
No.
So, yeah, we can, you wanna tackle 2? Tackle 2 is very short.
Right.
So as it turns out, we were hoping to award the bid for the passenger vans, grant funded to a large extent. We're looking at, we received an award from the feds on the enhanced mobility, $109,000, and the state has a New York truck voucher incentive program, which is going to provide another $120,000. We went out and did an OGS mini bid, as those of you remember. Nobody bid on these 2 vans, and then we went out and did our own procurement. We did get two bids, and that was good, and we were sort of thinking we were ready to award tonight. But in checking with DOT, it turns out that the process that they want is they want the actual contract to be with the federal clauses in it to be part of the bid program. So guess what we have to do? 3rd time, hopefully, as a charm. So tonight I'm going to make a motion that we reject all bids, all 2 of them. And then we're going to work with our attorney and with DOT. They're going to provide some template language for us because they want to be sure that these vendors are aware of all the clauses in the federal. As is always, the federal money tends to be very cumbersome in its paperwork. So I'm sorry to say tonight that I'm going to make a motion to reject all the bids. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So at our next meeting, we hope to have a new RFP available that includes approved language by DOT for the federal money in advance. Okay. Did we do a vote on that? All in favor? Aye.
Escrow
Okay.
just passes through.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. He may have not been timely, but he was always there. Okay. Resolution number 3, dated January 14th, 2020, and it relates to our annual reorganization. We always have a resolution that enumerates all that we know. The meeting dates, well, we might as well address that. Typically, we meet on the 2nd Tuesdays and the 4th Wednesdays. This month being a good example. Keep your pencils sharpened. When the fourth Wednesday falls 8 days later than the 2nd Tuesday, we typically try to reschedule that to the following week so we don't end up with this 8-day period and then a 20-some-odd day period in between meetings, so that may in fact happen again this January. But typically our meeting dates are the 2nd Tuesday, the 4th Wednesday, and we want to remind you additional special meetings may be scheduled and announced by posting the announcement at the town hall as required. This is also a good time to remind folks, if you want to find out about any meeting and when it's taking place, we encourage you to go on our website, redhook.org, click on Notify Me, sign up for any topics that you're interested in, and then as soon as something happens related to that topic, you can have it sent to your email or even texted to you. So we do from time to time call special meetings. A lot of times we have deadlines, whether it's grant or otherwise, to meet, and so we will quickly try to rustle up enough town board members to formally approve an application. Number 2 is the official newspaper. A couple of years ago, we went down to one official newspaper for convenience and expense. It was the Poughkeepsie Journal. Depositories, we have the same depositories as we've had in the last several years, with the addition now in this resolution of New York Class, which is again for the folks at home. It is an organization that's been formed to gather local municipalities, and the money If you heard my report earlier, from time to time during the course of the year, we have some of your money, excess in the sense that we don't need it for that month, and so we put it into this fund so that it can be earning interest. It's New York class, it has very strong protections on it, and so we added that last year, and it's turned out to be very good for our budget. We have lots of interest as compared to previous years. Petty cash, we've determined the maximum amount that the offices may hold for petty cash. It's not to exceed $500 per officer or $1,000 for the receiver. Same thing for the town clerk. Receivers, $500. The resolution states the salaries for the various positions as well, and the mileage reimbursement rate if you were to travel on town-related business to a workshop or a conference. This year the rate is 57.5 cents. It's down a tiny bit from last year. Undertaking clause as well. Check signing, the town board of the town of Red Hook authorizes the supervisor and the board members to sign on behalf. There's an annual financial report. The town board authorizes and directs the supervisor to submit an annual report 60 days after the close of the fiscal year. Procurement policy. You received in your packets, digital packets as well, the various policies, and each year we bless them and make any recommendations for changes. Those policies are procurement, investment, ethics, and fund balance policy. And if you have any recommendations for any changes to those policies, we can certainly take them up in the springtime, and please bring them forward. But each year we like to start off with taking a look at our existing ones and reaffirming. So page 2 concludes the meat and potatoes of this reorg resolution. Any questions? Okay. If not, I would make a motion that we approve resolution number 3, which relates to the annual reorg. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Now we get to the hard one, which is to go through the appointments, and then maybe tonight we could try to tackle the liaisons to the various committees. Because what I'd like to do is issue to the community a list of the vacancies that are available and solicit membership, including a couple of committees that haven't met in a while, have become dormant. So what I'd like to do is maybe see if whoever the liaison could sort of be responsible for reaching out to the membership and seeing who's interested in staying on, or more importantly, who's unable to, and seeing if we can get a couple of these committees up and running again. Okay, but let's start with appointments. We have the latest draft, dates back to late October, and for the folks at home, we keep updating not only our appointments, but our committee and boards as well, as vacancies become available, and we encourage you to take a look on the website. Maybe there's some topic that you're interested in and you'd like to volunteer in the town. Much of what gets done here in town is because of volunteer efforts, and we certainly appreciate it. Okay, town board appointments is the official depositories, newspaper, we have that already, safety officer, we have highway superintendent, Teresa Burke in that position. Disaster preparedness and civil defense is the supervisor. Emergency interim successors, we have myself and Teresa as the first two. Obviously, we would need to replace Harry and Sarah, who are no longer on the board. What do we think, Mr. Deputy Supervisor? Could we
Well,
put you down as
Yeah,
one
I'll
of those?
volunteer, take
Okay.
Harris, please.
Okay. And emergency interim successor. So what?
You don't need a fourth, right?
Well, it'd be nice to have a fourth. But I'm thinking somebody
We
who.
needed you and Teresa.
Bill
right?
Hamill's signing up over here.
Bill is signing up?
2 bills.
2 bills.
2 bills. Okay, just to confuse things. More the merrier. You never know. Receiver of taxes, vital statistics, water rents collector, agent handicap parking permits. You see Sue McCann's name on all those. The assessor is in the middle of, or almost the beginning of a 6-year appointment. Building inspector, so we'll have to make sure that our, there's a change in that department. Steve Colton has now gone part-time. Bob Fennell is
And
also.
what is his title? Is it still building inspector
Yeah.
too?
Yeah,
Yes?
yeah, part-time building inspector too. And then John Fenton is also part-time, so let's make sure we get his title correctly. John will be doing the inspections.
Code enforcement officer, I
Yeah.
believe, but we can verify that
Yeah,
in your code. Because it goes by what your code provision says. I know that civil service titles are different,
yeah,
so it
they are.
might be code enforcement officer / whatever your civil service title is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Officer 2, I think is what that is. Director of Purchasing, Ted Cudsey, Animal Control Officer, still the Dutchess
I'm sorry, so on
SPCA.
Bob, I thought we had enlisted a CEO before as well. And a
Yeah,
part-time.
part-time CEO, yeah, I guess 2
Right.
titles.
Right, he's a part-time CEO, but he also
think
has code enforcement status
He
to
does.
back up Steve.
Yeah, and
Right.
not building inspector.
Right.
So those title changes need to be a part of this document. Okay, so Ted Cudsey, Dutchess County SPCA. And representatives, I don't know if there's been any change there.
We actually discussed that today.
Oh,
Marian's been looking to step down for a while.
okay,
And we would specifically be looking for somebody who would be interested in becoming or taking over as treasurer as well.
cool,
So if you guys want to keep that in mind.
okay. So who should we put for now? Vacant?
You can leave Marianne there.
Marianne
She's
there.
still doing it. She's still.
Looking for a replacement. Okay. And the alternate was
See
Mark.
Mark?
And Mark's still around?
Mark's still around, yep.
Still for a while, okay,
Mhm.
good. Building and Grounds has both myself and the highway superintendent. Justice Court Clerks, part-time, Nancy Roberts, Catherine Fell. Attorneys for the town. We don't have a third person yet for the Justice Court Clerks, but yes, that's in the budget, is to train a third person to fill in. Attorneys for the town, Rodenhouse and Shaw,
And
Polydor.
and Polidoro.
Right.
Yes, let's get that updated. That's a change from 2020.
Mhm.
Congratulations to Victoria. Okay. Town engineer, so last year we had a discussion about keeping 4 firms on because we had 2 firms that were specifically for certain projects. Weston and Sampson was thought to be working again on the rec park facilities and didn't turn out that way in the bidding process. So I don't think they should be listed as town engineers. Same thing with Chazen. I think we had our good friend Russell Urban Mead did the work that we anticipated in preparation for our natural resources zoning change that was adopted as well. So that leaves us with the two firms, Ty and Bond and Crawford and Associates. And so I would make a recommendation that we stick with those two for now. We probably should have next year maybe go out to do an RFP on all of our consultants. I would think it's time, you know,
2021?
in 2021, maybe if we prepare that. And this way we can be ready. Okay, supervisors appointments, these are the ones, deputy supervisors, you know, Bill O'Neill is the deputy supervisor again for 2020. I'm still currently the budget officer. Secretary part-time, Jackie Finaroli. Town historian, or as I like to say, we have a town historian, Emily Major. The assistant to the town historian is Claudine Close. Town clerk appointments, are there any changes to the town clerk appointments?
No, they're not.
All set, okay, good. Deputy town clerk and registrar and receiver are all clear. Highway superintendent appointments are deputy superintendent of highways, Ricky Schlomer. Okay. Other town employees, officer, highway secretary part-time, Laurie Pierce. Assistant budget officer and bookkeeper to the supervisor, Ann Conway. Deputy assessors part-time, Diana Picciano. Transfer station operator, TJ Hackett. Solid waste attendants, Bill, I'm not going to pronounce Bill's last name correctly. Sigathy. And Paul Testa. Not to be confused with Jacob Testa.
No relation.
No relation.
Not that you know of. Maintenance and groundskeepers, okay, Tom Peters, Howie Callis, Jeff Tremper, Connor Borick, Joseph Coon, also Pat Jones, right? Patrick Jones. Not on this list, was a hire a few months ago. Okay.
Is Connor still on, Connor Borick? Was he?
You know,
was he this summer?
yeah, summer, so I think we should keep him on.
Okay.
He goes back to school and then we hire him for the summer again.
Okay.
So maybe we'll keep him on there, unless we hear otherwise. Rec Park and Program Director John Kim. Man who wears many hats and wears them well. Water District meter readers. So this is the current list, I believe. Diana, Laura Lee, Brian Smith, Chris Gifford. Our contracts and consultants, town physician is actually the hospital, Northern Duchess. Attorney for the planning board, I don't know that they made any changes there. It's Ben Keenan Bean. Water district operator, they were awarded the contract again for 2020, that's BRI. Computer software, software consulting associates down the block that way. Planner is Green Plan. Town CPA Lori Doty. Custodial services Pollard's Cleaning. And the police and court attendants. We utilize on a contract basis the Village of Red Hook Police. Obviously we have coverage as well from the Dutchess County Sheriffs and from the state police. Okay. So any questions about that? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve those appointments, first page all the way through to police and court attendants. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, let's see how far we can get. Meetings, we discussed the meeting. Monthly and annual reports to the town board, department heads and committee chairs reports, monthly by noon on the Friday, if possible, obviously. The CAC and the rec commission do annual reports. Now we'll talk about the town board organizational responsibility, the chain of responsibilities with the supervisor, deputy supervisor, town board members in alphabetical order. Who's got it off the top of their head? Bill, Hamill?
It's Hamill, Kane, O'Neill, and Testa. Right?
Someone Looks like you all rehearsed that. Okay. Very good. Mileage, we talked about how the mileage rate for 2020 is 57.5 cents. Town departments, chain of command, department head, deputy department head, if no one exists, supervisor, town board liaison. So, let's tackle some liaisons to town departments, shall we? Function, assessor, that's the supervisor, attorney, that's the supervisor. What should we do about the liaison to Bard College?
That's you.
Should I stay on that? Okay, maybe a good idea. Bookkeeper, same. Building inspector. Who wants that one?
But as I look over them, I was going to volunteer for the recycling and the village. Add to my mix. I don't know whether,
The village of Red Hook?
yeah,
Okay.
village. I mean, I'll agree to do that, and
Okay.
and the recycling center from Sarah,
So,
if anybody doesn't
okay.
want.
And building inspector now, do we have somebody with a law enforcement background who might be interested in being the liaison to the building?
I would say
inspector?
Bill Hamill.
Sure, I'll do it.
Well, that's such a great idea, Bill. How did you come up with that one? Is our councilman
You gotta
okay
think
with
about
that?
that.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Thanks, Bill.
uh,
All right, animal control. No fighting over this one,
I'll
folks.
do that one too.
You will.
Volunteer for the highway
Bill
department.
Hamill, Bill
Animal
Hamill.
control.
Okay,
do you want for the
fire
highway department?
companies.
Bill?
Fire companies, Bill, you're doing that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, highway department. We need some Christines here, we need some Jacobs here, guys. Christine,
I could do, I was gonna say I could do purchasing.
you can do
Yeah.
purchasing.
I can do highway then.
Jacob's gonna do highway. Okay. All right.
What happened to animal control?
Oh,
I'm
no.
moving up.
Bill
Oh,
Hamill.
Bill's gonna do that?
Well, it's that law enforcement background we're looking for. Use the skill sets where they're best utilized. Okay, Red Hook Central School District. I'm happy to do that, but does somebody else
I'll
want
volunteer. Well, how many,
to? You will?
well, I mean, if nobody else wants it.
Well, you have the history, you remember when it was built, so.
And I'm president of the Alumni Association.
Well,
so
that's
I
a,
got-
this is a
You're in
good
there.
year, this is a good year for you to be the liaison.
We don't always get along though with the school district, but anyway,
You know, Bill.
easy.
Yes, we have a new school superintendent going to be coming in the fall. Okay, special projects, intermunicipal
I'll
task
keep that.
force. Town clerk.
They're all done.
Might as well be me, yeah, right
I'll
down the
be
hall.
Village of Red Hook and Christine is Tivoli.
Village of Tivoli, Christine, and, well, you know, we could put Bill Hamill there too.
Okay, or do we need to?
We don't need to do two. You
I
want to
spend
just
a
keep
lot of
it?
time in Tivoli.
Well, I was just gonna say, he's seen it from the porch of the bakery often. All right, so we'll do Christine for Village of Tivoli and then,
We'll find another one for you, Bill.
okay. Board and committee liaison, agricultural and open space. Bill, what do you think? We can resurrect that?
Yeah, I'll
I
try.
talked to Michael Robertson the other day. I don't know.
I didn't know he was chair.
Well, he had offered to be chair, but we haven't seen those meetings coming together. Okay, so you'll stick with
But
that?
Rich and Kenny and I are going to put together meetings.
Wonderful. Board of Assessment Review, I can hang on to that one since that's a daytime one. Board of Ethics, who would
I
like?
can do that one.
Okay.
Oh, Jacob, yeah,
Jacob, good.
our Title IX guy. Okay. Thanks, Jake. CPF PDR Advisory Committee,
I can keep that.
Christine's gonna keep that one.
Keep the cemetery.
What do you think there?
I'll keep it
You'll keep the cemetery?
if I don't go in there. Or either way.
Or either way. Okay. Quote of the day.
Okay.
Or either way. Okay, communications committee. So Sarah wants to chair the committee. I'd be happy to be the liaison to it unless somebody else would like to. She would like to chair it, Sarah. If she chairs it, then there won't be much for me to do
CAC.
except be available. Okay. Conservation Advisory Council.
I would like to do that one.
Okay.
All right, Jacob.
Design Review, Hamlet.
Yeah, I'll keep that.
You want that? Okay. Disaster Preparedness, yeah, I'd like to stick with that. Which reminds me, we're trying to schedule a tabletop exercise, folks. And it would be great if all the town board members can come. We're looking at a week, I believe
It's April 9th.
Yeah, April 9th. Thank you, Jacob, off the top of your head. So, if you could check your calendars for that, I think that'd be a very important exercise. And we could also discuss some training that you can do online in advance of that.
So far, so good.
Okay. April 9th, mark that on your calendar. So I'll stick with that. Economic Development Committee. That is one. They meet Wednesdays, alternating Wednesdays at 8:30 in Village Hall.
I can do that one too.
You want to do that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right, Energy Committee, I'd like to stick with that. Greenway and Trails Committee, Christie.
I'll keep it.
You'll keep it? Okay. Planning Board,
I'll keep that.
okay. Recreation Commission.
I can take that if nobody else wants it, but if you want it, you can have it. You're here. I mean,
I'm happy
I'm
to
good
do
at
it.
email, I'm good at responding in email during the day, but if they need somebody who's
Okay.
in the town hall, do you want me to do it? Or do you-
Well, I can do it, and then
Okay.
would you back me up on that if I need help then? Maybe we'll share, okay.
All right.
St. Margaret's Committee, let's get this up and running.
All right.
Bill?
Yeah, I'll try.
All right, there we go. Senior Services Committee, they meet in the morning, I'm here anyway, unless somebody else would like it.
I guess you got it.
I'm not hearing a lot.
Mhm.
Sister Cities Working Group, yeah, that hasn't been doing a lot lately. That's normally headed up,
I'm sorry, you're
By
keeping
someone else.
sister cities?
yeah, well, it's, nothing's happening with it at the moment. Tree Preservation Commission, so we need a new person there. Who will speak for the trees?
Do they meet during the day?
Huh?
Do
Yeah,
they
but
meet
is-
during the day?
No, that's a nighttime meeting. Jacob, you
Yeah,
can
I-
do the trees?
Yeah.
Water District Advisory Board, we don't even have it to ask. We know Bill Hamlin's gonna fight tooth and nail for that one, right, Bill?
That's fine.
Okay. We didn't get our grant for
Oh, we
our
didn't?
study to extend the sewer, the feasibility of
The
extending
feasibility
the
study.
sewer.
We didn't get it?
We didn't get the grant. Unless they're gonna issue some more funding. Yeah, we didn't get a rejection letter yet, though, but we didn't get the grant. Zoning Board of Appeals and
Yeah.
Zoning Review Committee,
I'll keep them.
you keep them both, the Zoning Review Committee, we need to give them some stuff to work on. Okay. So I don't think I want to tackle these yet, right? Because I think we want to put together a list. If you would each take your, well, let's do the liaisons on this, and then if you would each take your committees, and then reach out to the individuals, find out where the vacancies are, and we can put together a notice to be sent out to everyone and put on our website, and solicit volunteers for those vacancies. But all right, so
We just did
Did we
liaison.
got them all, right? Is
Yeah.
there?
There's a
Well,
couple.
wait, no, there's a
There's a
couple at
couple.
the end, there's a couple at the end. And I talked to Brenda Cagle about, we've gotta get that, Complete Streets up and running, and so Brenda's willing to join that. And I'd be happy to be the liaison for that one. What else did we not cover? There's one at the end.
Local waterfront revitalization.
Well, I don't think the LWRP needs a liaison. They got me and Christine
We got two that are on there. It'd be nice if we could
and Paula.
appoint one as the liaison, maybe.
Either one of us?
consistency.
You want it, Christine?
For what,
We'll just
LWRP?
appoint, we'll just appoint both of you as liaisons. That makes sense.
You might as well.
As opposed to members.
Eliminate them as members? Is that what you just said?
It sounds very harsh the way you phrased it, Sue, but
I don't-
yes.
I don't think we can.
Maybe just call them
No,
liaisons.
no, wait, you can't limit it because there's
You
money,
need it- you need the
money
grant,
involved.
yeah, the
with
time.
volunteer
Well,
work.
No, but I think
We
it's
leave them as members.
members and liaisons, there'll be
Okay.
duplication there. What did we cover? Planning board.
Red Church Committee.
The Red Church, which was not on our list
Yeah, but
for
that's,
some reason.
I'll stick with that.
You'll stick with
You understand
that.
that? It's on the page there, myself, Harry will stay, Claire, John Hughes, Sue, Jackie Zacco, yeah.
Yeah.
We work
So
pretty good.
let's insert that if we could into our draft alphabetically, that committee as well. All right, very good. So we'll mark this up. I'll ask Jackie to mark this up in conjunction with Sue, and we'll get out the list to you all ASAP digitally, and you can,
Well, actually, I do this list.
yeah, you do that list,
I
right?
do the list, yeah,
Yeah, just the
not Jackie.
vacancies.
Charlie Nugent is threatens to move out of town, you know. so-
Yes, yeah, I just saw him last night at the rec commission meeting. He is moving, he's bought a place in Massachusetts.
Can we see that, or-
Okay, so let's do that. And then what we could do then is.
Did you want to vote on the,
Yeah, the liaisons, yeah. I vote on the appointments, the rest of the remaining appointments as described, and I so move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. And
So
then,
did that include making Sarah the chairperson of the communications?
no, not yet, not yet, because we're not tackling chairs or individual members. Okay, so we'll go through and establish vacancies and re-upping and all that stuff. Okay, we're about to go into attorney-client.
do correspondence?
Before that, I was just about to say that we have some correspondence relating to the water requirement for the courts. There's a list, our highway superintendent has provided the board, and also the public via the website, a list of the roads that the speed limit postings are being updated on. It's a fairly extensive list of about 14 or 15 roads or so. And so if you see that we are replacing those signs on your road, that's what that's about. We have already begun work on looking into drafts for shared services with equipment with different towns at the request of our highway superintendent. That's another piece of correspondence, and that'll be on the agenda coming up soon. Okay, that's what we have for correspondence. Any public comment before we leave? Linda, happy New Year.
I was wondering if you could go through a little bit about the passenger vans, what type of fuel it uses, how how this is going to be implemented, where are they being stored, who's driving it, how big are these vans? What's the whole thing?
Yeah, okay. So but just very quickly, some of those answers we have, some of those we don't. The passenger vans are all electric, okay? And they'll be charging at the charging stations that you see right behind here at Town Hall. As for the program, exactly the program and who will be driving it, we're putting together a little subcommittee now, as it looks like we will be getting those vans, because the pool of funding keeps changing on us. But it's looking more and more likely that they're coming in, those vans. It takes several months for them to build them, so we have time to. So there's a committee being formed together to come up with some recommendations, and it includes the folks from Friends of Seniors and Reuben with the Senior Services Committee and some of those members. Hacienzo Foundation, which is providing some of the funding for the vans as well. And we're looking into what other municipalities are doing. So we don't have answers to the programmatic stuff yet, but we have months before those vans will be built and delivered to us.
Do you know how long it takes for the recharging?
Yeah, there'll be level 2 chargers, but we're actually looking at having one of the alternates was fast charging. So if we do the DC fast charging, you're looking at, you know, an hour will get you more than 100 miles added on to what's likely to be more than 150-mile distance when the battery is almost full. One of the bids that we had was for between 170 and 170 miles fully charged. So these chargers here that we have, just so you know, are what's considered level 2, and with the power that's being drawn on it, they add about 23 miles range per hour to a typical vehicle. So overnight they'll be fully charged quickly, but again we're looking at a supercharger or a level 3 charger actually to be put in the village parking lot first with some funding.
Will other groups be able to like rent the van?
You know, all those questions on how it'll be done haven't been answered yet. So we'd appreciate as much input from as many folks on that as possible. Okay.
I have something to ask. Is it typical that the highway department liaison is chosen without the input of the highway department or the highway superintendent? Because with all due respect to Jacob, my understanding was that Bill Hamill was going to be the liaison potentially for the highway department, which would make a little more sense to me since we have such a huge budget and he is a budget expert. So I just want to make it clear that I wasn't asked, I wasn't consulted. If that's typical and you just choose whoever you want to put in there, so be it, but I am a little disappointed.
Thank you. I didn't know that there was a preference for any individual or...
Well, that's because I wasn't asked, but maybe next year things will be different.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. We have a couple items to go into attorney-client for, and this time I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I make a motion we enter into attorney-client. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.